Being cheap is expensive. That's what today's guests tell companies who lowball offers, drag out interviews for months, and then wonder why the best people walk away. Hiring is one of those places where trying to save money costs you more in the end. Welcome to Project Vanguard podcast, where veterans and mission-driven leaders share what it takes to build America's energy future. I'm your host, Kevin Doffing. Max Cormier and Wyatt Frasier served together in the Army and went on to co-found Sitreps. What started as a meme page became a trusted community of veterans in business. And if you don't follow them, you should. And if you missed the Warhammer 30,000 references, well, no one's perfect. Sitreps is now a recruiting firm that places vets into leadership roles at defense tech startups and private equity portfolio companies. And soon, with our help, they'll be bringing more high-grade military leadership into the energy industry as well. We cover how they built it, where they fit that nobody else does, and the straight truth on both sides of hiring. What companies get wrong and what candidates get wrong. Let's get into it. Max, Wyatt, good to see you guys again. How's it going today?
Good, man. Yeah. Good to see you too. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, well, it took us a hot minute to get you on here, mostly, completely my fault, but things been busy.
No, it was partially our fault too. We were traveling all over the place. We were in Singapore and Wyatt was in Alaska and I was down in Baja, Mexico, spearfishing. So it's partially our fault too.
I haven't caught up with you since the Singapore trip. I saw some photos online. What was that like?
It was amazing.
It was interesting, except for when I got food poisoning. That was not good in Malaysia.
Yeah, I think Singapore was probably the first place that I've gone to overseas where I've said, apart from the 12 hours time difference, which makes it very difficult to live abroad in a place like that, it was probably the first place that I said, wow, this is incredibly livable. I could get dropped in this place today and I wouldn't take long to acclimate. So it was a pretty amazing spot and would definitely go back. My wife was obviously quite jealous that I went there for the first time without her, and she was watching Crazy Rich Asians and imagining what it was like, but fun place.
Yeah, she's just on loop, sitting there going, that could have been me.
Exactly. So we did find out that the house in Crazy Rich Asians, the big palace mansion that the rich family lives in, actually in Malaysia, because nowhere in Singapore has a house that big. So.
Oh, really? I just figured they didn't have enough grounds. Like, that was the thing. My brother was expat there for several years, and they were like, you're seeing most of the country in that movie because it's just not that big. I mean, it's great, but it's not New York City or with 5 boroughs or the American Northwest.
And 25% of their land was reclaimed land too. So they just built it. They put dirt in the ocean and built it, which is mind-blowing to see.
Dude, that's awesome. So tell everybody why you went out there specifically. I thought that was really cool, like how you got asked to go out there.
Yeah, we have a couple of clients out there who are semiconductor supply chain-esque clients. So they create things that help us make semiconductors. Anyone that's familiar with how semiconductors, chips are made, knows that it's an impossibly difficult process that blows my mind every time you look at it. It's not one company, it's not 2 companies, it's literally thousands of companies that make it possible for us to function.
Right.
For us to have this call today. So we have 2 clients out there who both of whom have business with A&D clients, and they want to have local sales presence here in America. So these are companies that literally there are not firms other than them that do what they do. One of whom actually is headquartered here in Carlsbad, California, but they also have an Asian presence. The other is just in Singapore, and there's not an American company that does these things. We obviously are trying to improve our own industrial capacity with things like the CHIPS Act. But both of these firms used us to find salespeople to establish their market presence here in the United States. So these are salespeople that live in America. They're American sales folks. They have experience in semiconductor supply chain. And they are seeing a big rise in businesses that want to hire here in America to expand their presence. They're seeing a big exit from China as China, their economic conditions, regulatory conditions are increasingly unfavorable to external companies. So they came to us and said, hey, you should come down here and meet other clients. It was a super productive trip, talking with other folks across Southeast Asia, also the Netherlands, about helping them find good talent here in the US.
No, that's awesome. But I mean, for people who don't know, can you take us back on what is the Sitreps story? Like, how did you guys get together so that, you have this meme page, which is hilarious. So anybody listening who you haven't already known about it, but most of the people I talk to already do, is hilarious. I don't get the Warhammer 30,000 references. I'll be honest. That wasn't something I got into, but I appreciate them nonetheless. But then you go from that and building up like just this really great shit talking community of vets to helping vets get jobs at extremely high levels. Like, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, so I'll take maybe the origin story, and Max can probably touch a little bit more on what we're up to today. But we'll rewind to slightly pre-COVID. Kyle Eberly, who's our third co-founder, Kyle is at EY doing M&A, consistently getting questions from vets. How do I get out of the military and not fall on my face? You seem like you found a job that pays decently well, that you've integrated into corporate America. What do I do?
Sounds familiar.
He'd been answering that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he'd been answering that question time and time again. Kyle's personality is one that he always says his greatest strength and his greatest weakness is that he's incredibly lazy. So he thought, how can I not answer this question how can I make it so I have to do less work and disseminate it more widely, right?
You just described why we have a podcast.
Right. And I say that, Kyle frequently brags about that. There's no shade being thrown at Kyle for that. But at the same time, I was considering getting out of the military. There was a time that I was at West Point. There was one day where West Point brought in a bunch of former vets, or they brought in a bunch of West Point grads to do this presentation on giving presentations. And they were all Boston Consulting Group consultants. And I talked to all these guys, and I was like, man, you guys are making more money, and you seem like these are consultants, right? These aren't like people at the pinnacle of happiness in corporate America. But I said, you guys all seem like you kind of enjoy your job more than the majors that I talked to here at the academy. What did you do? And they all said, oh, I used the GI Bill, I used VR&E, I got out and I got an MBA. So naturally that led me and Kyle to becoming kind of friends. I was already planning to leave once Kyle and I teamed up. I mean, Kyle had probably shared, 100 memes, had about 1,500 followers when him and I started to make the memes together. Once we got to about 10,000 followers, we thought, wow, this is actually turning into something. And I think we had the first person that reached out to us and said, hey, can I pay you guys, $100 to advertise my lip balm? And we were like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. Like, we've made it.
Beer money. Yes.
Yeah. Our side hustle has turned into something that we can actually justify to our wives. And that was cool. We got to, 30,000, 40,000 followers. I, at that time, had gone to go get my MBA at Wharton. And after leaving the Army, I'm sure we'll get into that a little more deeply, but I was at Wharton, Kyle's at Google, and we're doing more events. We're doing more webinars. We have enough of a following that we start to leverage folks like yourself to give advice, to do AMAs on the page, to start actually making a website. At the time, it was this really shitty Squarespace site that, looked like it was, going to ask for like finding hot moms in your area kind of a deal.
Lots of weird ads.
Yeah. So Max and I
feel like you're citing an actual ad you saw bannered on your page.
I don't think they were quite that bad, but it was close.
You were expecting those to pop up, though. Max even said that to me one time. He was like, this does not feel like an advice page. But it's all the clickbait ads, right? That say, like, doctors don't want you to find this one trick to stop your inflamed gallbladder, right? It was those Google ads. And we used those because, like, it paid us, like $180 a month, right? And we're like, okay, well, that pays for the hosting costs. I won't fast forward too far and kind of let Max talk about some of the really cool stuff that we're doing. But we no longer have a Squarespace site with that. We no longer are just making beer money from advertising lip balm. We actually started to get companies that said, hey, you have a really big community and you have a lot of trust. Can you find us people inside that community? We'd never done recruiting. And frankly, I had no idea that that was an industry that had as much upside as it did. But we started to execute for clients and we realized, hey, we can actually do this pretty well. Like we actually can find people fast. We can find people that trust us, ergo they trust the companies that we're recruiting for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually pretty fun. I think that, I found out that I was kind of naturally fairly good at it. I think Max is too. And that just continues to grow. So that kind of brings us to like 2 years ago, we started doing that. We've continued to grow. But, then Max and I had served together, and I called Max up and I was like, dude, do you want to help me out? So I'll let Max kind of take it from there and tell a little bit more of the story.
Well, hold on. So go back. There had to be other revenue opportunities that you considered. I mean, like when we first started Project Vanguard, that was the thing. They were like, oh, we need you for workforce, right? Everybody sees vets. They want jobs. Y'all have taken it in a different direction. Because usually when people are thinking about vets, they're thinking about like craft trades. They're looking at the volume side of the equation, not, the quantity side, not the quality side.
Staffing agencies. Yeah.
Right? I need 100 bodies out at this construction site. Vets are our best employees. You've heard it all. But nobody's thinking about, but how do I put somebody into a C-suite on a portco, inside of this roll-up strategy that we're doing that, would field well with middle America. Like, y'all have hit something that's very niche and needed and has high value. Because we were looking at that. And I mean, I was getting all these hits for like, hey, we need vets to go build energy projects. But it was like, yeah, but there are groups that do that. There's C3s that do that, right? Like I like partnering with y'all because I don't want to do that. I like the messaging and advocacy space. And so we're doing all this comm stuff, right? But it's very different. But we had that same kind of offer. So like y'all had to have had other bites at, or opportunities to bite at other apples. Did that come up for y'all, or did you try some things, or did you just like, nah, we tried that, we didn't like it, or somebody proposed something and just wasn't in our wheelhouse?
Yeah, I think you said we have considered. I would say we're considering. We definitely want to continue leveraging the community that we built. Advertising is one thing that people always ask us about. The problem with advertising on any platform is you have to do a lot of advertising for it to pay off, to be a durable revenue source. I mean, you think about, right, if I came to you and I was like, Kevin, I'll do a project for you for $100,000, right? Sounds like a lot of money, but that's definitely not enough money to run a business, right?
Right.
So then you're like, okay, how many clients do you have to get at a $50,000 to $100,000 a year mark to do these kind of like big contracts? You're going to have to get 20 to 30 to build an actual business, right? Not just doing this as a solopreneur thing, which you can only do to a point. I mean, the problem with being a solopreneur is you encounter the problem that you not only do you not want to scale, you can't scale, which might tank your business because you have to continue to get more and more people. So we were like, man, that's probably not something that we want to super engage in. Also, most people, when you start advertising for them, they want to know, is it working? Let's get the metrics. It becomes a very difficult thing to measure. Recruiting is very easy. Someone gets hired or they don't.
Right.
You place or you don't. It's very binary.
I had a couple of buddies that own search companies and they were telling me the process. And I'm like, that's great, but like that's long. And they don't have a group of people that they can pull on, which is really the value of like building the community you have. And I remember the first time we talked, was because we were helping with the vet business plan competition at Rice, or I was. I remember y'all talking about universities are just not a great fit for y'all because they don't like anything that could be misconstrued as edgy, which is what gets traction, right?
If you can even get to that point where you get anything approved to work with them, because there's so much red tape too.
Great point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, looking at that, Max, I mean, like when you're talking about recruiting, y'all have your own stories I want to get into on like going through higher ed and, after the military. But like, as you look at the kind of customers and where y'all fit and where you best fit, what does that look like? I love talking to y'all so that we can open up the energy market to bring in more high quality vets into this industry. Because we work with like a C3 that we've done another podcast with Marcus over at Next Stop for that junior enlisted craft trades base, which is important, but it's like, that's not the same as somebody who's going to come into an FP&A role, right? Like that's a completely different thing. I don't want anybody to think, oh yeah, we can get 50 of those at once coming out of Fort Hood. It's like,
yeah,
that's not who you want in FP&A.
No, that would never work. I would back up a little bit and kind of answer part of your earlier question and then kind of roll into this new one. You asked if we had tried other things. We have tried recruiting for several different industries, different sizes of businesses, and we've found that we really have two ideal client profiles, basically. We've tried a few companies that wanted people that were more entry level and just weren't really a good fit for our audience. So a lot of it comes down to really knowing who like is in our audience. we are the community for veterans in business. And with that, like there's a certain type of people that are following the page and paying attention to everything we're putting out. And our average follower usually looks like a former military officer. Not always. We see enlisted folks do very well. Also, this is something we talk about all the time, that on the tail end, it kind of like a bell curve distribution of enlisted folks, the far right portion, those folks actually, I think, outperform most officers, I think. Like the highest functioning enlisted folks, I think, are better than most officers oftentimes. But anyways, most of our followers, I think, are, typically former military officers, did between 5 and 10 years in the military. Then they got out, usually got an MBA or another advanced degree, and then have worked for 2 or 3 years, and they're trying to kind of figure out the next thing. And coincidentally, those are also the hardest people for companies to find. It's easy for companies to find somebody coming right out of an MBA program. They can do on-campus recruiting. They can go to the school. They can talk to people there. It's hard for companies to find people, like for an FP&A role that we've done a few placements. It's hard to find, folks that have banker for 2 or 3 years. It's hard to find those people. And talking about our business model, like one of the reasons we're successful is because we can move so much faster than a typical recruiting agency. Like Wyatt was saying, we don't have an army of people sending cold LinkedIn DMs, right? Like all of our efforts are supported by our community. And so we're able to move much faster. And we have such high trust that when we publish a job or something, people are really paying attention to what we're publishing, and they know that it's going to be a good company, a good role for them. So there's just a lot less friction, and we get a lot of people that apply, and we usually have to kind of like beat people away with a stick. We get too many applicants for roles. So we're trying to like find like who are the best top, 4 or 5 guys or gals that we can submit to that company. So kind of long-winded answer, and I realize I got off track, but we have found through all this trial and error and now doing it for over 2 years now and recruiting for more than 30 companies, that our best fit clients for now are defense tech startups, and then also private equity firms that have blue collar or manufacturing or some kind of more blue collar type portfolio companies that they're rolling up, like HVAC companies, roofing companies, plumbing companies, electrical, things like that. We're finding them leaders for those businesses. And then also for the defense tech companies, finding them ops folks, finding them go-to-market folks, also done technical roles. We've kind of done everything. The reason we are such a good fit for defense tech specifically is because we understand clearances. A lot of the folks in our audience have clearances and speak the language and understand the pain points of the end users. And also, because we have such a big network, then we can find folks quickly. We're just like a perfect fit for these startups. They've gotten to the point where they've raised a lot of money. They've started to find some product market fit. They've started to get some traction, but they've kind of expanded beyond their personal networks, but they still need to find people, and they have raised money. They need to pay these folks. They need to burn that money basically, and they need to grow the company as fast as possible. And so we can come in before they have like a robust talent team and before they have a big name and help them find folks to scale quickly. So sorry for being so long-winded there.
No, you're good. I know that like I've talked to some PE groups or, VC groups inside the energy space, and they're like, hey, I think I have this differentiated model. We just need to bring veterans in as operators. I'm like, no shit. But yes, I would love to help you do that. Also, like, I don't have time to do that, but I know some guys who do and already have the entire infrastructure built out for this, right? And that's where I think that's one of the things we still need to add to our website is like mapping out your career pathway is like, okay, I just need to go get a job doing whatever. I want to go be a PM. Okay, you don't need to like waste your time doing a bunch of other stuff. You just need to like talk to these people, go into our private Slack, meet them, they'll refer you, you go get a job. That's our bread and butter, right? And then like on the early enlisted, it's like, go to these guys, we'll get you connected with those mass, job openings, and we'll pull you in on some stuff. But then I don't want to say the cream of the crop, but like these higher end opportunities that y'all are managing is kind of a whole different thing that they're there, but it's so much more curated. And if you don't have access through someone like y'all, you can't get there. But then the companies, especially in like energy, don't know that you exist. And that's where we're trying to bridge the gap of just raising the awareness, which is why I'm so excited to have y'all on here, is that we can really emphasize what are you getting when you work with Sitreps and what's the access like and speed to market, especially on a lot of the energy stuff we do. Speed to market's a huge thing, and I think they understand that. But on the talent side, don't waste 8 months trying to fill a senior role. Like there's people now, and there's projects to build now.
Yeah. I think this gets at a hot debate right now around HR and talent. And we work with some teams that leverage their internal talent teams very well. And other companies where, like you said, people will spin their wheels for months and we get brought in at month 8 of a rec being open. Obviously, we charge a fee, right?
Yeah.
We're not doing this for free.
Not a charity.
But when you look at the fully loaded cost, I mean, one thing that we get very familiar with and we also offer is not just talent placement, but the ability to help make sure that you and your company are competitive, that you're dealing with the right pay bands. Every business obviously wants to save as much money as possible, but being cheap's expensive. And we offer you the ability to know before you get there if what you're going to do works. It's amazing how many clients we work with that will disregard advice that we or other recruiters have given them, offer salaries that we tell them will not be accepted, that are at the bottom end of a pay band that they offered. Then they're like, why is this person negotiating, right? Why did this offer not get accepted? So I think what working with us offers people is kind of 3 main things. Like first, we offer that really fast, in-depth candidate experience. So we can get people quickly, we can get people to trust you. The second is that we offer the ability to understand market dynamics so that you're going to be dealing with good data. And then third, I think also we've all operated. Max has a career in tech sales before this. Myself, I worked in private equity on the operations side. And Kyle's obviously been in tech. We have employees as well that are executing that have deep experience, but we're not career recruiters, right? We're not people that are telling people how to get out of the military that have never done it themselves. So that's, I think, another big piece that you get working with us.
Right. So go back. How did you two end up in the military in the first place? Was this like childhood dream, or was this like, it was that or jail?
It was more childhood dream for me. I grew up in the Virginia Beach area, Chesapeake to be specific. And, there was 7 or 8 military installations within an hour of my house. And all my mentors at church and all my Boy Scout leaders, all my sports coaches, they were almost all veterans. My dad's not a veteran, but he worked for the Department of the Navy as a civilian for 31 years. Both my grandfathers, veterans. It just kind of seemed like the thing that I need to go do after high school. And I was smart enough to listen to my parents and decide to apply to college and go the officer route. So to appease them, I only applied to one college, which is the only one that I wanted to go to, which was VMI. Luckily, got in there. My plan was to either go there or enlist in the Marine Corps. Very glad that I got into VMI. Nothing against folks that enlist in the Marine Corps, but I think it ended up being the right path for me. It was a hard 4 years. Yeah, but I don't know. Why did I go in the military? It just seemed like a fun thing to do. It seemed like the right thing to do. I love our country. We live in the best country on earth. It's the most exceptional, wonderful country that is and ever has been. And I was very fortunate enough to be able to serve our country. And so it just kind of seemed like the thing that I need to go do. So yeah, I'll stop blabbing on about it.
Yeah. What about you, Wyatt?
So for me, I grew up in Utah, no military family to speak of. My grandfather was a doctor in the Army in the 60s, not a deep military experience, and frankly didn't talk a ton about it. He gave a few stories, but it'd been so far in the past. And obviously I'm not an MD. So I grew up just kind of loving America. I thought history was really cool. I was always someone that would do research on wars and military history. And a JAG that I went to church with, he was a Marine Corps JAG, retired. I was not in the military area, but he'd retired, moved back to Utah, and he'd been a Marine Corps JAG for almost 30 years. And one day he just said to me, hey, you seem like you love America. Have you ever thought about joining the military? And I said, yeah, I'd actually thought about ROTC maybe to, pay for school. That seems interesting. He's like, well, you should look at a service academy. You should go hang out with my friend who is the Air Force Academy's admissions rep for here in the Salt Lake City area. So I went and talked to that guy, and it was really funny because he looked at me and he's like, are you going to apply to West Point? I was like, yeah. And he's like, are you going to visit West Point? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, you're going to go to West Point. And I didn't really know what he meant. And then I showed up the first time, like the view at West Point is just breathtaking. If for anyone, I don't know if you two have been there, but it's really, really spectacular, especially for someone coming from the West. These big river valleys don't exist, right? Rivers are like this big west of Mississippi because there's big mountains. I was just in awe. And then he also looked at me, he's like, well, unless, you realize if you go into the Army, Or if you go to the Marine Corps, you could graduate. And 8 months later, you might be leading a bunch of guys up a hill in Kandahar. Like, is that really what you want? And I didn't say yes. Like, I didn't know that that was what I wanted. I never did do that. But I kind of looked at it and I was like, I don't want to go somewhere where that's what you don't want, right? I don't want to go to the academy. Sorry, Air Force officers, where you're like, I came here because I didn't want to have a chance to do the hardest, kind of most difficult thing. I didn't really want that attitude around. So it's kind of a funny sell. I think he thought that he was going to get a kid that was like in high school that was like, oh yeah, I don't want to go to war. Like, I'm comfortable here in Bountiful, Utah. Like, that sounds really terrifying. And I was like, I don't know if I want that attitude. Maybe I don't go infantry. But I didn't. But I definitely don't want to be around people that like actively are seeking not to go infantry, right?
Yeah. That's the best Marine recruiting is like they tell you you're not good enough to be a Marine. They just neg you into it. Like picking up a chick at a bar, they're just like, no, you're not good enough for this. And they're like, yes, I am. I have daddy issues.
Yes, I've never heard that analogy, Kevin, but I'm sure that there are Marines that would absolutely use that.
I've known some of the recruiters are like, oh, yeah.
The daddy issue.
Yeah. One guy was telling me, he's like, we'll be in a room in an auditorium at a high school and everyone's like pitching, go Navy, go Air Force, go Army. He's like, as the Marine recruiter, we're just in the back going, none of you are good enough. And he's like, and then the 5 that show up are the 5 I'm going to close.
That's funny.
Well, that's funny. I don't think the Air Force guy was trying to neg me. I think that he actually thought that I would be like, oh yeah, I don't want to do real combat, right? I want to be a glorified GS and like go to the Air Force. So my cousin second cousin had also been an Air Force Academy grad, and she didn't fly. And she's like, oh, if you don't fly, your life's not that great. So I had an astigmatism. I knew I probably wouldn't be able to fly. So didn't go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Showed up to West Point for a summer seminar thing and thought this place looks really cool. Similar to Max, I kind of just felt like people are all here doing stuff. They all seem like they're kind of focused and pushing forward and never looked back.
And so what was it like when y'all were getting out, right? You're talking to and helping a lot of people going out now. I mean, Wyatt, you talked a little bit about it, talking to Kyle, going in and doing some stuff, but like, how did y'all get out? And what was that like? Was post-grad something that immediately came up, or was it I had to go fumble around and find my way to that?
Well, both.
Than Max's. I'll maybe just start out by saying the reason that like we say go get an MBA, use your GI Bill, use your VRNE, which is what I did to go to Wharton, because it worked really well for me. I knew that that was what I wanted to do very early. I actually took the GMAT during my Bullock time because, it's Bullock and you have a lot of extra time, like randomly, right? You're sitting around. And so I pulled a book out and like read for 20 minutes while we're waiting for movement or whatever. I knew that I wanted to go do that. I'd seen a lot of mentors that seemed like they had succeeded. I just kind of followed a pattern, right? I said, this is something that I see a lot of people that seem successful. They've gone to get an MBA. So I should probably not try to fight against and kick against the pricks and go do this thing that successful people have done. So I got out, in April. I did a skill bridge. My hot take is skill bridges don't, unless you're going to go into a full-time job, like it's not going to change your brand, right? If you're an Army officer for 8 to 10 years, you're going to be an Army officer. You're not going to suddenly become a tech PM because you did a 3-month skill bridge. Anyway, I did a skill bridge, but then I went to Wharton and I loved my time at Wharton. It was awesome. And I got a job operating for a portfolio company. I was chief of staff at a portfolio company inside a private equity fund. Did that for about 18 months. And then Max and I just kind of said, I think we should do this thing full time. So that's my shorts version. There's a reason that Kyle, myself, Max, all of us say, go use your GI Bill benefits because it worked for us. And we've seen a lot of people kick against the pricks and try to resist. And then they come back to us and say, man, maybe I should have gone and done that thing. So that's my version.
I didn't do that. I did an executive MBA much later. At first, I was like, this is kind of bullshit. I'd already run a business for a decade. It was kind of like, I imagine what Mustangs feel like going through OCS, right? Like, yeah, okay, guys, I got this. Like, I know I got to check this box, but I'll keep my head down and my mouth shut as much as I can. But the whole time I'm just thinking, oh my God, this would have been so great to do when I first got out, when I was running a company and I was literally reading Accounting for Dummies. Like, how much better my time would have been spent actually going through an accounting class for free.
Well, Max's story is a lot more entertaining than mine.
Yeah, so I took more of the fumble around approach, as you called it. So I studied civil and environmental engineering at VMI. I served as an infantry officer in the Army. And then when I got out,
Hey, you're cutting out the time that you were the Brigade S6 of the year.
I'm about to say that my comms were cutting out. Yeah, I did serve. So I was an infantry officer and then served as a communications officer for about the last like 12, 13 months or so.
Wow.
Because there was nobody else that was qualified to do it. And neither was I, but I figured it out and was the best one in the brigade in that position. So thanks for reminding me why. But when I got out, I had no clue what to do. I thought because I was in the infantry that there was no way I could basically transfer those skills. I didn't want to be in law enforcement. I didn't want to go do contracting stuff. I didn't want to do private executive security kind of stuff. And so I thought that because I had an engineering degree, I have to go be an engineer and kind of start from square one. The starting from square one piece was kind of true. That's something we talk to a lot of vets about. It's like you do have to kind of start over when you get out of the military, and you should probably be more humble than you think you should be because your rank and your experiences, like a lot of them aren't going to carry over, unfortunately, and people just aren't going to understand what you did.
Yeah.
But I was definitely mistaken in thinking that I could only go be an engineer. I know now that I could have done so many other things, and I have done several other things since getting out of the military, but ended up working for the state of Alaska as a civil engineer for a year, designing airports and roads and bridges. And sounds cool, but it was very cookie cutter and kind of boring for me. And I realized after a while that I needed to be doing something faster pace, something with more moving pieces, something more innovative. So ended up going into tech sales. But before I did that, I ended up working with the Ukrainian military for about a year after Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in 2022. Went over there. Initially, was just going to go over there for a month, and it turned into 2, and then kind of spiraled out of control. But it was basically like an XO kind of running around solving a lot of different problems and helping people get what they needed to get the job done, helping deliver a lot of supplies, non-lethal aid, a lot of medical equipment, things like that. Also helping facilitate some evacuations for, women, elderly, disabled people. And long story short, came back from that. And Wyatt and I actually briefly started another company. So that might be a longer story for another day. But we had an agricultural tech company.
Really?
So we tried to start an energy company, raised money, didn't work, had some major disagreements with the third co-founder. We just had different ideas about the direction of the company. And so I left that. And then I was on a hike with Wyatt one day. And
Well, hold on. What was the thesis of the company? Like, what was the value prop? I'm just curious.
so we were developing a more efficient way to extract methane from pig waste.
Okay.
So we basically had developed a faster and more efficient method to do anaerobic digestion.
Yeah. I'm aware.
Yeah. So, and the company's still going strong. We partner up with one of Wyatt's buddies from West Point. We built a prototype in Arkansas. We had a bunch of tanks and heaters and mixers and everything, pH detectors and everything. And I was kind of like pushing the limits of my engineering degree, trying to set everything up and test everything and kind of like prove the concept that we had. And we were going to build a plant up in like kind of near Minneapolis. There's a lot of pig farms up there. And there's also a natural gas pipeline up there that we were in talks with, having a partnership with. Wyatt and I's idea was we wanted to basically prove the tech, build some prototypes, prove it works, patent it, and then sell it, right?
Yeah.
We didn't think we could do much more than that, right? Like it's just very operationally complex, a lot of moving pieces. And, I have a engineering background, but I'm not qualified to build like large power plants and hook them up to gas pipelines and everything. So
The OPEX and CAPEX on these kind of projects was like, this is huge, right? And
Oh no, one of our
I don't-
members raised $500 million through Piper Sandler for, renewable natural gas, and it was distributed dairy farm. Exactly what you're talking about, right? Like Air Force vet.
was it doing it on the farm?
Yeah, I think so. I forget because I was always like the gathering process for this. I was in Iowa a couple weeks ago. We were just launching a chapter, and I was meeting the guy who leads the USDA for the state of Iowa, and he was walking us through this, and he's like, dude, the cow manure depends on like which farm, which breed, what feed, trying to get the anaerobic digester to work the same for all these different inputs. He was just like, I knew a little, and then I realized I knew a lot less after like we just were BSing about it for 5 minutes. And I was like, somebody smarter than me could do it, but not me.
There's a lot that goes into it. We were going to do it. We were going to collect everything, kind of do it in our location. And then we were going to bring some of that manure back after it was used. Basically, it was drier because we were collecting it as basically slurry. And then we were going to do the anaerobic digestion and then bring some of that back as manure for the farmers. And then we were going to try to like profit share with them. But yeah, it was way too complex. I mean, cool idea. We think it kind of had legs, but.
So I went from collecting shit to shit posting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I never thought of that actually. And shaking shit. I used to shake these big tubs of it because we had these mixers, but they broke. And so I used to had these like massive, I forgot what those things are called, those big tanks, about 5 feet by 5 feet by 5 feet. So I was like shaking these massive tanks of pig shit. And a couple times, unfortunately, got it all over me. So,
Dad, what'd you do today? Just, the usual shit.
Yeah. I mean, the logical conclusion from our natural gas business shaking pig shit didn't work is we should go start recruiting via a meme page, right?
yeah.
There you go.
So as y'all do this now, talking about the recruiting, like what's the best way and what's some of the worst ways you've seen people try to engage? Like, are they just coming to you be like, hey, so I need a vet that will work for $20 an hour, but be able to do all these unicorn things? I mean, like, what's kind of the ends of the spectrum of like, oh, they get it, they know how to do it, this is how we like to work. And like, oh my God, if another person asks me for a charity case, for 20 grand a year to be our CEO, I'm going to just suck start at 45. Like, what is that?
Yeah. Kevin, I think two sides of this, obviously, client, candidate. On the client side, I think the most frustrating thing is just refusal to accommodate the market and kind of getting back to that being cheap is expensive idea.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously have to deal with reality. I'm not suggesting that founders go and pay 99th percentile. Though if you do, you're going to get really talented people. Like pay, money talks, right?
Yeah.
People do not really give two shits about your startup. And if you're not a founder, you're not really probably going to make that much on exit, barring working at SpaceX or Anthropic, right? Most people are going to get a down payment on a house.
Yeah. And I mean, like, that's one of those, if you had a crystal ball 20 years ago thing, like.
Right. And look, there's a startup out there that's going to make some people very wealthy. I don't know what it is. Neither do they. But for the most part, if you go work at a startup, your equity is probably going to be worth some mid 6 figures if you're really lucky, right? I have a friend that's been at Anduril for 4.5 years and he thinks his equity is probably worth $500,000. Great outcome, not life-changing. That's a great outcome, not life-changing. You're going to be working for the rest of your life still. And a lot of employers want to think that they can use these weird non-cash comp levers to attract people. And spoiler, people care about money. That is a big thing. Yes, they care about the mission, they care about industry, but you're probably already selecting from a pool of people. The people that apply to your company have probably already self-selected for liking said industry.
Yep.
So a lot of employers just get really bent out of shape about not coming up 10K, 5K, and we're like, look, you can do this or you cannot, but this is the demand. Then they'll be frustrated because 2 people in a row won't accept the offer. Or they'll want to find someone, they'll want to find a salesperson that makes a low base and they don't want to pay guaranteed draw without much traction, right? So these are all issues that it's like,
Yeah.
we're not trying to cheat businesses out of money, but you have to be realistic. Candidate side, I think, without sounding like I'm talking down to my own candidate base, but just entitlement. A lot of vets that will message us just with no business applying to these roles and say, I have a year of experience in an unrelated industry, in an unrelated role. Can I have this VP of sales role? And yeah, shoot your shot, I guess. Easy apply. And the irony of this Indeed and LinkedIn is it's made it so that it's more noise than ever.
I wrote an article, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, and it was a don't you know who I am syndrome, right? Like I had this, right? Like when I got out, I'm like, don't you know who I am? I'm a
Most vets do.
Blah, 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 blah. And it's
Most
like,
vets do.
The answer is no. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody cares who you are. But who are you going to be for them?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what have you done that gives me some kind of warm fuzzy that you will be successful going forward? But
yes,
like, I don't care what you did unless it is going to somehow convince me that you will be good in the future for me.
Well, I had a professor, the best class I took at Wharton was the softest, most like squishy class. It was called Careers. And we literally talked about all these things about the professor, Matthew Bidwell. Go look him up. He has fascinating research papers all about careers, right? Is it good to job hop? What's the optimal tenure? All these questions that like he's actually quantified.
Oh, wow.
And he had an interesting point that he said, look, most people will not hire externally if they don't have to. True, right? You always want to hire someone that's currently at the company, not even because you're partial to them. They're just learning less, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have to ramp them.
Well, they're already a culture fit. You have some interpersonal, you're not worried about hiring a high performer that doesn't fit in
Right.
or doesn't get along, which you can't test for in an interview.
Well, and then he said, if you're not going to hire externally, do not try and get a promotion by applying to another job for two reasons. The first, most people don't want to promote you and bring you into a new company. You're now learning two things. You're learning a new company and you're learning a new job. That's really hard. Second reason is personal. It's hard to learn a new job. We've all ramped at jobs. It's hard, right? It's going to be 2 to 3 months before you fully understand things. Do you really want to learn a new job and a new role that you've never had before? Like, do you want to know a new company, mind you, and a new role, right? You're probably not going to do that well. So you're setting yourself up for not having that much success. The caveat he said is you can generally get a pay raise by switching jobs, easier than staying at your current job. So what you might say is, hey, Kevin, I'm currently a project manager in oil and gas, right? I've been doing it for 5 years. I've demonstrated track record. And you're like, you know what? I really need a project manager and I can't find someone internally. So I'll hire you and I'll add $40,000 a year onto what you're currently making. And then in like a year, you can promote to the vice president of project management. But you probably don't want to hire me for the VP role because I've never done it. I don't know your business. You don't know me. That's a lot of risk. And I might get that VP role and really suck and not do well.
Yeah.
So basically, he said laterally move to another company for a raise, not a promotion.
Yeah. The advice I've always given is like, thing, especially coming out of the military, because it's a socialist enterprise, right? It's all for the greater good.
You had Max get to become essentially like the director of communications with zero experience because he had a little note on his ORB, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was branch detailed signal.
But in the corporate world, you can jump roles, you can jump whatever, right? You're not locked into a promotion schedule. And even though you're an S6, you're not getting paid that money,
No.
right? In the civilian world, that would never happen. You're not going to be doing that role without getting paid that.
Yeah, exactly.
There's ups and downs. But yeah, I mean, I always talk about the transition out as like this weird midlife crisis wrapped in with an identity crisis, with moving your family, with changing subject matter expertise and industries all at once.
Mm-hmm. It's the worst. I mean, it's rough. I always just tell people it's going to be hard. Like, it was way harder than I thought it was going to be. I had that "you should know who I am" syndrome or whatever, and I thought like it would be super easy. Everybody's going to want to hire me. I'm a stud. I was in the infantry. I was airborne. I can do whatever.
Mm-hmm. Same.
No one cared. No one had any clue what I did.
Yeah.
And it didn't really matter either. Then I also didn't have all my buddies that I was doing everything with too. That was really hard too. And so I had to find new buddies. But I would add a couple of things on that because you asked what are good ways to work with us and bad ways to work with us. Unfortunately, we have a good deal of people reaching out to us and just wanting us to work for free, which is, we try to help out as many people as we can. But I mean, we are a full suite recruiting agency,
Yeah.
And we can't execute searches and fill roles and screen people and do all that for free. We can give you some free advice. Happy to jump on a call and help you out, help you maybe scope things a little bit. But beyond that, we have a business to run and this is our livelihood. And so that's always kind of weird. It's like they want us to do a bunch of work for free. So in the beginning, when we were first starting out, we weren't charging like a deposit or anything up front because it was like, we were just trying to earn people's business and we didn't have any success to speak to. Now that we have a lot of success to speak to and have full-time employees, we're a legit business now.
Yeah. Time is money.
We don't really start any engagements without an upfront deposit because it's skin in the game, and it's just like you would pay an attorney or you pay an accountant or anybody else, right? Like, we're not going to go do all this work for you for free. It's bad for candidates. It wastes their time. It just kind of wastes everybody's time. So that, I think, would be one thing. And then the other thing is just companies not running a tight process or not being thoughtful about how they're interviewing people. When you're interviewing someone, when you're looking at bringing them into your organization, it's basically like dating. What a company shows a candidate, how the process is and how quickly they respond to them, how thoughtful they have put together the interview process. Do they bring them on site? Do they have a process that makes sense? Are they asking them the right things? Are they actually figuring out if they're a good fit for each other? if you don't do those things well, you're not going to attract the top cream of the crop candidates. Like the best candidates aren't going to put up with a lot. They're not going to wait around to hear back for weeks on end. They're not going to deal with like a super messy recruiting process. So I would encourage companies to think about that. Like if you want to get some, top tier talent, like you have to put effort in, run a tight process and put your best foot forward, because that's what you're showing them about your organization. If you show them a mess, they're going to be like, I don't want to work here. Kevin didn't get back to me for 2 months. And then he messages me about this other role that didn't even interview me for. And it's $20K less or whatever. Just like, so I would say like, be thoughtful about what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, we do have to run. I think we're a bit over and we have some calls with some folks.
Yeah, I've got a call.
Yeah, no, guys, really appreciate you taking the time today.
I appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Project Vanguard podcast. If this episode sparked something for you, share it with someone who's ready to think differently, whether it's about an all-the-above energy approach, how energy security is national security, or the veteran workforce in our industry. If you believe what we're building, a quick review goes a long way. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep up the fire.